na ninawashukuru nyinyi wote wananchi. Mwishowe you discover that we are all one people, and the challenges we face and whatever happens to us happens to all of us as one people. Shida zetu ama our challenges do not distinguish between which part of the country you come from, which tribe you belong to, where do you go to church, and so on and so forth. Ama namna gani? Basi tufuate vile tunaelezwa na viongozi wetu hapa wa kanisa, tupendane, tusidi kuombeana na kukaa pamoja. Mheshimiwa Jango, I have heard. God bless you.
Welcome back to Turning the Mirror podcast. This is where we reflect on the forces that shape the Kenyan sphere of politics and governance. And myself, Owuoth Kaboko, and my co-host, Olengo Kwach. And today we are turning our focus on this man who is a political force and a possible contender for 2027 Kenyan presidential position. And this man is Fred Matiang'i. Olengo Kwach, can you tell us a little bit of the personalities of this man?
Government, as President Kenyatta tells us all the time, government is about service. The reason why people elect a government is so that they can get services.
Matiang'i is well known as a firm fellow, straightforward man, and someone who executes the orders as given.
Yale ambaye nimeweza kuyatimiza kwa uongozi wangu, singeweza kutimiza kama singekuwa na ile team nimekuwa naye. Na moja ambaye amekuwa bulldozer wangu, shujaa wangu, ni huyu amekaa, anaitwa Bwana Fred Matiang'i, ambaye amenisukumia kazi.
With Matiang'i's image and his personalities, how does it resonate with the Kenyan public? And now that we are in a political instability, maybe situation right now in Kenya, we've seen recent abductions. People are dissatisfied with the governance of the country currently, and he's not so much into the picture. He just comes once and appears a little bit in the public image and maybe gets again out of the country. So how does he resonate with the masses of Kenya?
I'll take you back to the government that was formed to govern the country between 2013 and 2017, when Matiang'i was brought in as the CS for Information Communication Technology. During this time, we saw Kenya actually grow, and we saw the broadcast change from the analog way of broadcasting to the digital set-top box. Like things were being digitalized. And so Kenyans remember Matiang'i as one person who closed the one man who closed the analog way of broadcasting, that is TV, radio, and all that, to the new technology or the technological era, whereby now the TV and all that now came through the digital set-top box, among many other things. So that is where we have parents who remember that, or people who were then parents and had access to TV, radio, who remember that, because people were given a timeline. Within this time, we would have shut all the TVs. I'll fast forward, bring you to 2017 elections, where now we had the national televisions cover the elections and the post-election violence. And we had the TVs closed. We had Citizen TV closed. Like we had these major television networks closed. And they were now, people could now not see them. People could not watch them. And all these were attributed to what Matiang'i doing. Then we had the exile of General Miguna. And people again saw this as a Matiang'i doing. Because then he was now at the helm of the interior, of the interior ministry. And so when he was here, he ordered the closure of the TVs. He ordered, actually we had him now, when we had the Miguna thing, Matiang'i is seen as one man who played a key role in this. And even later, after the courts had ordered otherwise, he was still reluctant, never appeared before the courts of law, in as much as he was being summoned. We had actually, but fast forward again, I bring you to a period when Matiang'i was the CS for education. Matiang'i ensured he cleared, in office, he cleared the neck body, sent other people, a good number home, and then restructured it into what he thought would work well, changed things so that principals were in charge of the exams in their schools, and other things. So we had, for the first time, that is in 2016, yeah, before even we go all the way to the likes of Miguna Miguna. I'm just trying to tell you how people would relate with him. We had students in 2016 whose results, so they came out, people actually were surprised because the performance was very low, and he had killed the several A's that were in several schools. And we also had the results released within 3 months, within 1 month, as opposed to the normal, was it 3 months as opposed to the normal 6 months that we saw earlier, and among many other things. So those who are majority voters today are in one way or the other a group that had suffered in the hands of Matiang'i, and this is a name that became household, even to those who were doing exams and those who were not doing exams then. Those who had done compared to those who are doing and those who are still preparing to do exams. So we have a man who, majority of the young people, the name, they resonate well with that name, because he is one man who, when decided to do something, he ensured he did it. And some of his marks are seen. If you walk around here today, you'll see school buses in yellow color, all of them. And he decided he was going to do that, and it happened. So he's one man who, when he decided to do something, he did it. And this is a name that resonates well with the Kenyan masses, because it's a household name. All the way from the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Information Communication Technology, then Ministry of Interior. One man who, he would threaten those who are causing insecurity, and he would tell you the government is coming for you. We are coming for you. And behind him, you would see all the security bosses. He was not alone. And by the way, if he said he was coming for you, he was coming for you. So he was one man whose name is very much common in the mouths and minds of Kenyans.
Our judiciary has got some of the finest people in the country. There is a clique in the judiciary that has been captured by a group of people in civil society and a clique of activist lawyers. And they are riding roughshod. Have you wondered, members of parliament, because you have the burden of leadership, have you wondered, in the last 3 years, one civil society activist in Kenya has obtained nearly 30 court orders, ex parte, 30 court orders, ex parte, from the court. He walks in, he gets an order, comes out. He walks in, he gets an order, comes out. In fact, he could even walk in today and say he wants an order so that all cabinet secretaries commit suicide. You'll get the order. He walks in, gets an order, comes out. What does that say about our judicial system? Last Wednesday, the whole day, the Attorney General spent time begging for one thing, to be heard. If we had been heard by that judicial officer, they would have been told what we are telling you. Mr. Miguna is on the air side. He is not in the custody of Boynet. Boynet cannot produce him because he doesn't have him. The director of immigration would have said, this guy is not held. This would have been said. Then the judicial officer proceeds to make a 36-page ruling. Just ask yourself, a 36-page ruling in 20 minutes, even if you are a paragon, isn't that evidence that there's collusion going on elsewhere and things are being brought to the judicial system to try and stall this? And then he says, when the judicial officer orders that we go to court, he says, let them come, but I will not hear them. What does that mean? Where do you want us? You want us for humiliation parade, so that you can drag us by the collar through the street of public opinion. It's not an interest to resolve issues. How can you be condemned and heard? As I told you, this is not a story. Somebody should show me, this is the affidavit of service that shows that you were served a court order. This is what's happening. There is an evil clique of judicial officers working with activist lawyers and elements in the civil society who are determined to make sure that the executive branch does not function. And they will issue order after order after order after order. You cannot move.
Now that this man is in the public domain, that he's going to vie for 2027 presidential position, now, you know, with the political campaigns, it doesn't just something you just wake up and you work on and it's just okay. It needs a lot of alliances, the people who you position yourself with, the persons you party with, the political parties that you are going to run on, and also international connection. We also think of finances. So we need a lot of stabilities and strategies that must be be put in place.
Yeah.
How ready is Matiang'i?
We've seen Matiang'i bring in a Canadian-based lobby firm by the name Dickens and Madison. And this is just to ensure that they lobby for support and partnership, international partnerships, and also to help in resource mobilization. And so with that, we see again a prepared man. We've seen Matiang'i himself try to align himself with UPA party, a party that is currently undergoing what we'd call in a layman's language renovation, or in other words, restructuring, to ensure it is ready for 2027. I also think the forces that would be behind Matiang'i are also not jokes. Remember the former president Uhuru Kenyatta? Yeah. He's still alive and kicking, and still a very serious force in the Mount Kenya region, and even the country at large. So we see a possibility of Uhuru Kenyatta. Actually, it's so obvious that Uhuru Kenyatta would support Fred Matiang'i, because remember, he brought him to the cabinet in 2013, maintained him to the cabinet, and even ensured he kept growing in ranks and becoming more powerful in the cabinet compared to all the other cabinet secretaries. So that shows that Uhuru is a man who believed in Matiang'i's way of doing things, Matiang'i's leadership, and all that. So it is so possible that we'll see Uhuru Kenyatta align with Matiang'i to support him for 2027 presidential bid. We might as well see ODM align themselves with Matiang'i, because remember, he was the CS for Interior when people were just going for the elections, and he seriously campaigned for Raila Odinga as the presidential candidate of Azimio, in as much as that position did not require him to do politics, but he did it just to see Raila Odinga win. Yeah.
You know, ODM right now is has partied and made a coalition with the Kenya Kwanza government. So to mean maybe most probably, as we may see the 2027 elections, we might see ODM and Kenya Kwanza becoming one thing, and maybe supporting Ruto. And with all this political force, the big man now is William Ruto, and Raila also still has masses and everything. ODM is an influence and also a force to reckon with, one of the biggest political parties, and UDA. So do you really think he will manage to counter all these forces?
With Raila and ODM, we are yet to see what happens after the February elections in the AUC. Because if Raila clinches the power, then chances are that they will support Ruto for the presidential bid in 2027. If he misses it, of course, we'll see him here, maybe support Ruto for a few months, and then dump him. Because we see Raila as a man who, in every election, he tries to rebrand himself to the politics of the day. So either way, we might see him with Matiang'i or see him with Ruto, but chances are that if he fails the AUC, then we'll see him probably with Matiang'i. Yeah.
You know what has happened with this election, and I said it in another meeting, that after the COVID-19 pandemic, now the new pandemic we are dealing with is the pandemic of lies. Yeah. It's the pandemic of lies. People stand up and they say things that they think make sense. I've been looking at politicians, and fortunately, I have the opportunity of having served in cabinet. I know how a budget is drawn, and I know how much money we have in our resources to draw a budget. When a political leader, a national leader, tells people, I will put aside 150 billion for market women, I'll put aside 50 billion for boda boda, I'll put aside 100 billion for this. I know how much our budget is and the projected growth of our budget. That time you have not talked about the amount of money that you are taking to counties. You have not talked about transfers for the education sector and so on. Where are you going to get that money to provide that kind of service? You're just lying to those people because you are telling them things they want to hear. And because they won't ask you questions, you just get along with it.
So with that political force, and William Ruto, William Ruto has everything it takes to be in power. He is in position. He is now the person who is at deep state. So he has connections even to the IBC, all the sections of power behind him. So will Matiang'i be able to counter him that much? Is he even having roots or links in the government?
Remember, Matiang'i in the previous regime, Matiang'i was the CS for Interior. And so he understands everything that revolves around power. from presidency all the way down to security and everything. Number two, he was a super CS, if I could call him that way, because in every sector he was taken to, or every sector he led as every ministry, he performed, because there's a mark he left in the ICT, there's a mark he left in education, and there's a mark he left in interior. And again, he was ahead or placed as a leader of all these other cabinet secretaries. So we see him as one person who understands both ministries, all the ministries, and one person who also made links to each and every sector during his tenure as a cabinet secretary. Again, even aside just looking at a support, if at all Raila doesn't support him, he has other people also in places, because remember, there are those he worked with in the cabinet who still believes in him. Somebody like the former CS for Agriculture, the guy from Meru. Then we have other people also from Western, like Eugene Wamalwa, who also has a party, DAPK. We also have other people like Justin Muturi, just former Attorney General. He was also a good guy in the other. He also held a serious position in the other government. So we have serious people who were in the cabinet, have been MPs, others have been senators. They've served in different capacities. And so would also, if they decide to rally his support behind Matiang'i, then he would be a serious force.
And with your political lenses, do you see or expect Matiang'i to ally with persons like Okia Omtata, people like Morara, the people who we've seen currently to be as the political activists, and such like the Gen Z movement?
Of course, in politics, anything is possible.
Yeah.
And that is very possible, because we've even seen Kenyans put Matiang'i as the president, Martha Karua as deputy, Omtata as prime CS. We've also seen it the other way around, Matiang'i president, Omtata deputy. Like, we've seen Kenyans try to form different formations, put it on posters and post it out there. Yeah, sure. It communicates a message to these candidates. And remember, Matiang'i sees these things, Omtata sees these things, all the other candidates sees these things. So maybe to win, they might as well think of forming or uniting and combining forces so that they can work together. Yeah.
Sure. Oh, to wrap up this conversation, Matiang'i indeed is a political force, a force to reckon with indeed, that any person who is thinking about the presidency must look on him. And that is what we had for you today. And welcome back again another time. Remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. Welcome.
As you subscribe and hit the notification bell, remember we are also always very grateful to have you join us for these conversations. And on behalf of ourselves on this bench and those behind the camera, we say thank you.